Thank you, Father Albano, for your kind words and for your introduction. We'll begin right away. I'll start with three very recent facts that have taken place. Last week, in fact, last Saturday. This guy is not moving. Last Saturday, a 10th standard boy from my school, St. Joseph's High School, packed up his bags at home and left for school but never reached school. He took a train and landed in a place called Karjat. Came out, met a man there and said, "Take me to an ashram anywhere in Karjat." The boy's name is Yash. That's not his photograph, it's just a picture there. The man took him on his bike and fortunately he landed at a Don Bosco place in Karjat where we have work going on for marginalized youth. He met one of our Salesians, Father Xavier, and Father Xavier gave me a call immediately saying, "Father, one of your boys," because on his shirt it was written St. Joseph's High School, "one of your boys has landed here." I immediately contacted his parents. His father went up, picked him up and brought him back. I met the parents, met the boy, and came to know that he was being ragged by some other boys for quite some period of time, and he just wanted to disappear into nothingness. He is now undergoing therapy, counseling, and also medication because he is deeply depressed. A 10th standard boy, Yash by name. Another story of a girl, again last month, September, a mother phoned me up and said, "Father, I'd like to meet you with my daughter." They came to see me. This is an 8th standard girl, 13 years old only. Very friendly with a 29-year-old boy and sexually active. She's pregnant and the mother doesn't know what to do. For them, it's just a relationship. They've agreed to be sexually active with each other, but now being caught up with a pregnancy, they're at a loss not knowing what to do. An 8th standard girl from one of our schools. This girl says, "I didn't have love at home, I finally found love with this boy." Another story. Beginning of September, a boy from one very noteworthy school in Bombay, one of the top schools, sent a poem to his class friends. And the refrain was, "Fuck you." After each paragraph, the refrain was, "Fuck you." One of the boys reported to the teacher reported to the principal called the boy, suspended him from school. I was afterwards told, I'm saying, "Can you do something?" Met the boy, talked to him and found out that he's totally absorbed with rap music. Completely. In fact, he's called the school rapper. Listening to this rap music almost all the time with earphones, doing his own jig, and then he started composing rap music. One fine day he thought he had produced a wonderful song and he sent it to his class friends thinking he was doing something great and he would get applauded for that. He got suspended from school because of that. That was Raymond. Today's youngsters are living in a confused and fast-changing world. They have no clear-cut goals. They have no focused vision in life. They are confused. With things changing so rapidly in today's world, they have a conflict of values and cultures. They find it difficult to know what's right, what's wrong. No one to guide them, no one to tell them. To add to it, there is a tremendous pressure on them to perform well. They've got to be successful. And in quite a few cases, there's a big gap between what their aspiration is and what their abilities are. They don't know how they are going to meet the expectations of their parents or of society. Every one of them definitely wants to be successful, but it's not easy, they know. Many youngsters go through a lot of struggle and frustration in trying to choose a career. Yes, we know there are a number of careers available, but there is also a big number of youth struggling to get into these careers. It often ends up that a youngster is doing something that he has not been trained for, all because he needs a job, he needs the money. And then there is a lot of frustration. There are many youngsters who are qualified and still jobless. Job does not only bring money, job also gives a social status. One of the first things we ask when we meet people is, what are you doing? And many youngsters don't know what to say, or sometimes they fib in order to get the approval of others. There are many youngsters that need to move away from their family. They go either to the cities or they go abroad for studies. They are then in a world which is completely different from the world that they have been brought up. They don't know how to adapt to this new world. They are confused, they have no guidance, their family is far away. Everything is absolutely new and alien to them. Many youngsters also experience a dichotomy between the old and the young. The picture that you see there does not show a dichotomy. It's a wrong picture. But most youngsters are not so helpful towards the elderly or don't feel so kind towards the elderly. There's usually a conflict between the young and the old. The old, you and I, always tell them and dictate terms to them without really listening to what is happening to them. And therefore, there is often a conflict which results in what is called a defiant and an oppositional behavior. It is not that they want to do wrong, but their frustration leads them to act in a way that they want to pay back to you. And in doing that, they hurt themselves. That is called oppositional behavior. Youth, my dear people, is also a time for heightened emotions. Number of emotions are very, very strong. Emotions like anger, sadness, frustration, fear. They are so strong, and usually a youngster feels overwhelmed with these emotions and doesn't know how to deal with them. We're all aware the sexual drive, the hormonal drive at this time is the highest during the adolescent period. What to do with this sexual drive? There is a desire to know about sex, to experiment about sex, to get into deeper relationships. Lack of experience and proper guidance can lead to a number of things. Pornography, sexual addictions, heartbreaks. They get into relationships and they don't work out. They have no one for guidance. They will also not approach the elders because they feel we will not understand what they are going through. The internet explosion and social networking sites is another big thing that our youngsters have got to face. All youngsters are exposed to the digital world in some way or other. Irrespective, my dear people, of their economic or social background, it makes absolutely no difference. Every one of them is exposed to the digital world. A little study showed that 91% are addicted to some device or the other. 30% to the TV, 27% to cell phone, 12% to computers, 16% to video games, and many youngsters to multiple digital devices. Our present-day society is also experiencing a disintegration of very basic institutions that kept youngsters in the past on check. We're talking like institutions of religion, the institution of the family, the institution of the school or college were institutions that in some way had a hold on youngsters in the past. Today, they don't care for these institutions. What the church teaches does not bother them very much. The family has very little hold on our youngsters. And when I speak about youngsters, I'm talking about boys and girls in their teens, right up to the age of maybe 25, from about 13 or 12 to about 25. Neither the church or the mosque or the religious leaders, nor do their parents, nor do teachers have much hold on youngsters today. Today's youth are also lacking living models whose footprints they can follow. Whom do they look up to? Who can be their model for them? These are models of the past, and it doesn't matter to them very much. They need present-day people who can influence them. And we were just talking about our leaders. None of our leaders, especially political leaders, are in any way examples for our youngsters of today. The youth, therefore, do not know where to go and how to seek help. They are thrown into a world of uncertainty, insecurity, helplessness. They are disappointed, they are frustrated, they are living with heightened emotionality. That's more or less a situation of the youth of today. I don't know if I'm, painting a very negative picture. But generally, if you look at youth, and I'm talking from the age of 13 to 25, most of them do not have the support they require, are trying to grope and move around in a world where they're trying to find a place. And they're not succeeding very much. What is the response of the youth in this particular situation? How are they coping? What is happening to them as they go through the world which is having these particular situations? We're talking about now the youth response. Living with stress on a regular, constant basis, both stress and frustration, they get provoked with the very slightest stimulation. They react to almost everything. And people wonder, saying, why are you reacting this way? It is not that particular thing that you said that they are reacting to. It is just the frustration that has been built. It is just the anger that has been there within them that comes out at the slightest provocation. Even trivial events cause them tension and anxiety. This again results in oppositional and defiant behavior. Sometimes they turn violent. It is called reactive behavior, which is not thought out. It's just a reaction. Some youth behave this way. But I feel sometimes the opposite is much worse. There are other youth that react in a totally different way. They withdraw into their own world, become depressed, do not get involved in anything, and many of them attempt to end their lives. We are aware, I don't know how it is really in Goa, but the suicide rate among adolescents in Mumbai is on the rise. We are very frightened during the exam period and during the results. Number of suicides taking place. For little things, not just studies, that's one of the reasons, but for very little things, they just kill themselves. Recently, an 8th standard girl who was disappointed because a friend of hers did not respond, slashed her neck. 8th standard girl. I don't think she really wanted to kill herself, but she wanted to sort of get attention. It resulted in something very fatal. She died. The World Health Organization says that India has the highest suicide rate of youngsters worldwide. Not a nice distinction for us at all. My belief is this: no youngster would ever commit suicide if he or she had someone to talk to, someone to confide in. And sadly, we have so many deaths because we have really not won over our youngsters and they don't trust us. We give them answers, we don't listen to what is happening to them. Youth also, in their anger, tend to join anti-social groups and hit out against society. They question the double standards that we are living, the double standards of this world. And personally, not having their own convictions, they are easily lured into organizations, gangs, terrorists, who lead them to take their life forward in a particular way. It's more out of an anger or frustration that they join these groups. Many youth get addicted to substances such as alcohol, drugs, and smoking. Most of this addiction are because of stress, as stress busters. Unable to cope with stress, they find their way out using one or other of these things. Again, many youngsters experiment with their sexuality and face problems such as broken relationships, betrayals, teenage pregnancies, guilt, and rejection. Abortion and venereal diseases are on the rise among teenagers. Sex has become a means of recreation, another stress buster. It is also, for some youngsters, an oppositional defiant behavior. If the society says this is not okay, I'm going to do it purposely to show I'm against society. Excessive use of the internet interferes with the daily life of youngsters. I was given a topic that is so vast, talking about issues affecting youngsters. Father Albano is laughing. One or two of these topics alone would be sufficient for an entire talk. Taking especially an issue like this, how are youngsters affected because of the digital world, is a huge issue today. What are we doing about this? Many youngsters spend prolonged hours on social networking sites as a substitute for interpersonal relationships. The human brain is growing throughout the adolescent period almost up to the age of 19. And the rewiring of our neural circuits takes place during this period of adolescence. Addiction to digital devices brings about a lot of problems in the brain development. They have what is called attention deficit disorder, short attention span. These devices encourage instant gratification. I want something, I must get it now. It also becomes a way of being self-centered and doesn't take these people out. Hyper-networking, which means more than 3 hours a day, or even hyper-texting, which means more than about 100, 120 messages a day, and many of our youngsters are doing that, is correlated, my dear people, with drinking, smoking, and sexual activity. This is research. The more they get into this, it is much easier for them to get into smoking, drinking, and being sexually active. It is also associated with depression, with substance abuse, which I just spoke about, with disturbed sleep patterns, which causes also a variety of other consequences, poor academic performance, and also leads to suicide. They have, youngsters, their own chat acronyms. ASL stands for what's your age, sex, and location. POS stands for parent over shoulder. PIR stands for parent in room. They give these cues to others so that people know what to say and what to do at what time. PAW means parents are watching. PAL is for parents are listening. Number of people are laughing here. Probably they are using some of these acronyms, in trying to keep contact with others. KPC is keeping parents clueless. WYCM is will you call me. LMIRL is let's meet in real life. K4Y is kiss for you, and TDTM is talk dirty to me. You can learn some of these things if you're trying to get in touch with youngsters. There are big dangers with regard to the digital world. We must take this seriously, and many adults, teachers, parents, because we have not grown up with this digital world, feel totally at a loss, not knowing what to do and how to encounter our kids. They are natives in this digital world, and you and I are immigrants. But the dangers and pitfalls of the digital world is tremendous. There's a lot of advantage. They can get in contact very easily with a group of people, stay in touch. There are lots of advantages. But some of the disadvantages and difficulties are pornography, online gambling, cyberbullying, which is pretty common. There are predators that are looking for people whom they can rope in for sexual activity. And there is also the fear of addiction. A boy again from my school, 10th standard boy, would spend at least 6 to 8 hours in a cyber cafe, getting online, chatting, etc. These for us are youngsters of today. Online friends allow youngsters to escape their real lives and even create pretend personas of themselves, something that is totally unreal. Instead of seeking to improve themselves, these individuals just remake themselves online while doing nothing about their offline lives. They are living in a totally different world. This often leads to increased symptoms of depression and feelings of inadequacy. Another problem with youngsters is their constant comparison with models. What we get in the media are people who are simply too good to be true. They compare themselves with models, actors, actresses. Many youngsters feel dissatisfied with their own physical looks and develop a negative body image. This generally leads to low self-esteem and a lack of confidence in themselves. Eve teasing and ragging. We have no clue how many youngsters are affected by this. What happens to them is not so much in the class, what happens to them is after class. How they are being bullied, how they are being terrorized by some others. And many of these youngsters who are terrorizing other youngsters have really got these very sadistic feelings. They find thrill in trying to hurt somebody else. They enjoy seeing people being hurt, people cringing at their feet. Now all this is coming because of the way they have experienced life. Somebody else has subjugated them, somebody else has dominated them, in turn they dominate others. We must remember that people who are ragged and Eve teased, they have a scar that remains with them for life. They find it very difficult to go ahead or to be assertive in life, even much later on in their marriage and life beyond. It haunts them for years to come. Anxiety, panic disorder, depression, psychiatric ailments are on the rise among adolescents. Most of these are a result of the negative lifestyle that they have adopted because of the lack of emotional support, low self-esteem, and an overwhelming stressful life that they are experiencing. This, in short, my dear teachers, is the world of youngsters, the situation and how they respond. What we need to see now, briefly, is what do we do? What is the way forward? That's the purpose of, I guess, of this seminar, not just to know what the situation is. And it's not an easy task, really, to find some way of how to reach out to these youngsters. The world of youth is largely different today. I don't know, if you just look at it, maybe 20, 25 years back, it was a very different world. In the last 25 years, much has changed. But youngsters at all periods of time, from the very beginning, have been a group that has not been understood very well, that have not been accepted very well. Let me put on the screen a quote. And I'd like you to tell me, I'm saying, maybe, who has said this? Youth today love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority, no respect for older people, and talk nonsense when they should work. Young people do not stand up any longer when adults enter the room. They contradict their parents, talk too much in company, guzzle their food, lay their legs on the table, and tyrannize their elders. Would it be true of today? People are all looking at me blank. Yeah? This is a quote, my dear people, from Socrates, 500 BC. I had a quote, which I have not put it down here, by Hestus, a Greek poet, 800 BC, who said something similar about the youth of his time. So it's not that youngsters are behaving very different from what they were behaving all this time. The reaction of youngsters today may be a lot more, but we've got to see why it is so. Here's something that I'd like to present to you. I don't know how clear, too small I'll read it out, even if it's not clear on the screen. Then most children grew up in two-parent families. Now many don't. Then only one parent had to work outside the home. Now both parents do. Then children had extended families living nearby. Now extended families are extinct. Then youth were given jobs at home. Now they have little or no responsibility. Then children entertain themselves. Now the media entertains them. Then families spent time together. Now no one has time for each other. Then neighborhoods were safe places for children to run and play. Now they are not safe in their own backyard. Then getting 60% you were considered smart. Now even 90% is not good enough. Parents are never happy. Then teaching was a vocation, a calling. Now teaching is a career, a profession. Then there was universal respect for authority. Now children are taught to question authority. Then there was a national consensus of values and morality. Now values are left to the individual. Then children were protected from information about sex. Now sexual messages are everywhere. Just a few more. Then most entertainment was family friendly. Now most entertainment is for adults only. Then God played a central role in family and social life and community life. Now God has been marginalized.